Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pigskin Project YouTube channel. Today, day one of the draft just happened. I'm with Ben, with Ryan. We're not on like three separate cameras. We're all together.
All together.
This is so
It's
beautiful.
Crazy. It's amazing.
All our teams made picks. I think this would be the best if we just go through every pick and just
Start
talk
from
about it.
one and talk about it.
Cam Ward, what a shocker.
Shocker.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was stunned.
No one saw it
I
coming.
mean, just to mention the Cam Ward thing, just before we get it, we knew it was going to happen. I'm excited for Cam Ward with the Tennessee Titans because they build up the offensive line in free agency, signed Kevin Zeitler, signed Dan Moore. Now they signed Tyler Lockett. They have a pick at 35. There's a receiver we could talk about. But overall, Cam Ward. But
It was easy.
the shocker happens at number 2. Jaguars trade up. We knew it would be Travis Hunter, but having the Jaguars trade up to 2, it seemed like at the last possible second the Browns wanted to get out of this pick.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's wild. Again, the Jags were a team that were tied to move ups, to move down with the Bears. Sadly, we'll get into that in a little bit. But again, Travis Hunter always seemed to be the second player off the board.
Yeah.
But they were able to get the trade done again at the last possible minute. The Jags got 204 and pick 200 in exchange for pick 30, 5, 36, 126, and then in next year's first.
Yeah.
But it's not going to matter
If this team is as good as I mean, you get Lawrence in his injury-riddled season, gets punked by Aziz Al-Shaair. I know we had disagreeing opinions on that one, but just overall, like with a quarterback like Lawrence, and I have much more belief in Lawrence than each of you, which it is understandable at this point. You got to show it more often, but that division, man,
it's going to be a dogfight.
You now drop in Hunter with Brian Thomas, and you now have a deadly receiving core, and like I have a hard time to believe they're trading up to put him at corner, even as good he is at corner. But then again, move on. The Browns we'll talk about here in a minute, but the Giants, I mean, they take Abdul. That was easy.
Yeah.
I know there was the last possible, the private workout with Shador. They want Shador. They end up not caring about Shador anyway.
They don't care.
It didn't
They
matter.
don't care.
This was all smoke for 2 years, and they take Abdul Carter, my number one player, your number
My
one
number
player.
one player.
And it's just overall, I mean, this guy has generational pass rusher written all over.
And they
Absolutely.
could still go and get the quarterback that they initially did a lot of work and tried to, Oh no, I apologize. No,
They
because
did
of
get
Jackson
their-
Dark.
Yeah.
Jackson Dark, which obviously we'll talk about as well
Yeah.
later on. But if they didn't trade back in, like we'll talk about, that would have been a possibility, and it was definitely something that we were talking about as well.
Yeah.
But as I said, apologize for slipping up. We'll talk about that pick later on.
Yeah.
Really quickly, what was going through your head with the Jacksonville pick? Because that was a
So-
spot at 5. The
Yeah.
Bears were
We all
heavily
three
rumored.
of us, man.
Yeah.
All three of us.
I personally, I mean, obviously I was going crazy and now at this point you've got an obstacle in Cleveland that, was picking at 5 now, and it's something that we didn't necessarily plan for. I also truly believe that the Jaguars did have a deal in place for Chicago. However, this is something much more that could benefit the Jaguars long term because Travis Hunter, that's a player that you don't really come across, that
It was
often.
a 2-player draft.
Exactly.
It really
was.
With that, new Jags GM kind of took it from LA, F them picks, let's go and get our guy. And then, they ended up with a really, really good player. So, I mean, the first thing I was thinking about is the different holes that Cleveland could fill. And we'll get to that pick as well. But, overall, just a very important draft for the GM. And, I mean, I would say he made an impact on his first showing.
Yep. I mean, Travis Hunter's spectacular, man. And it's one of those players that you just never goes for sale.
No.
They said on the broadcast the last time a non-quarterback was traded up for in the top 2 picks was Orlando Pace in 1997.
Wow.
Neither one of us, all three of us were not alive at that point.
We weren't
but,
even a thought anymore.
I mean, 30 years ago almost.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. And then you get to 4. Will Campbell. This is a statement pick by Vrabel. I think Will Campbell won the interview. Ugly crier. I'll say that. But I think he won the interview over with Vrabel, and this was just a statement pick. They're going to play him a tackle. They have to. I know we have all this guard talk, but he was all our number one offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, this is a great player. And then you get to Mason Graham. Again, Mason Graham had all this buzz.
Good player.
And we'll keep talking about it, but, like, Mason Graham has all this buzz. We had him, where did we have him fall? We had him 11 in our final mock draft. And even then, I gave you a little pushback with Walter Nolen. And ends up going 5, but he goes to the Browns.
Yep.
And so the Browns pick up this extra capital. They now have 33, 36, and apparently seems like Myles Garrett was the one who gets Mason Graham to Cleveland.
Well, that's the big thing is that they had done a little piece afterwards, and they had said that like Myles Garrett was the one who said, let's go ahead and get Mason Graham. And again, it made sense. I think all had him as a top 5 player in the class.
Yep,
Might as well go and get it. It was interesting to see the route that they were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
We speculated maybe Armand Membou. There was a little bit of doubt.
The guy on the far right
Jeanty.
was fearful of
I
Jeanty.
thought for sure.
You thought it was for sure.
I thought for sure it was Jeanty. I mean, they don't have a strong running back group as it is, and Jerome Ford I don't think is a reliable running back option. So they certainly, I would imagine that's something that crossed their minds. But Mason Graham's still a very impactful player, and I mean he's going to put on a show with Myles Garrett on that D line.
Absolutely. And then we get to the heartbreaker of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Ashton Jeanty goes 6 to the Raiders. Ben called it. I believed the late smoke. I thought this would be tackle all the way because of the value.
The need,
but
yeah.
Pete, he built his reputation on taking Marshawn Lynch, from Buffalo. But, what do you guys have? I want to start with Ryan, of course, with Jeanty.
Yes.
I think I have to.
It was definitely something that I would consider a nightmare scenario that happened. The way that this top 10 kind of fell for us outside of these next 2 picks, or I guess 3, or no, next 2 picks, it was definitely a nightmare scenario. I mean, Carter was something that, the Bears were interested in moving up for. The Giants were sold on him, obviously.
Yeah.
The Patriots taking up Will Campbell. It's the best tackle in the draft. And, the Bears could have used the left tackle. Looking at Mason Graham, I mean, a young defensive lineman that's going to be a game wrecker for a long time. He was somebody that got taken off the board. And then Ashton Jeanty, it's like you're taking blow for blow, right? So when this Jeanty pick happened, I was in denial for a lot of the offseason just because I figured Chip Kelly wanted his guy from OSU, and they were going to go with an O-lineman, draft running back in the 2nd round. So with this, obviously there was a little bit of disappointment, but I get it. That was also another one of those teams that had a weak running back room, so I don't hate the pick by any means from a fan perspective from football, but from a fan perspective from Chicago, it hurts. It hurts.
No, I'm not shocked. It was a pick that I had said again. Everything that you had said, it's how Pete Carroll made his money. It's kind of how he brought himself up to how we view him now was Marshawn. So it just made sense that they wanted to continue to do that. And it was a need. Are you going to go out there and throw Sincere McCormick out there in the backfield again for another year? No.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. This is a player at the position that it's tough to justify the position. It's easy to justify the player.
Absolutely.
Because this is one of those players that I think changes your identity of run game, not even just because of offensive line. I think this guy can still be a 1,200 guy walking in the door, and if you build an offensive line, he become a 2,000 guy like Saquon Barkley did. That is the talent we're talking about. It's just justifying the position. Clearly the Raiders were able to do so.
Right.
Jets take Membou out of Missouri, the tackle, chalk. I mean,
Chalk.
I thought it would be Warren, and, that's kind of the way it swung, but I don't think tackle was anything that we were stunned by. It just...
Absolutely not.
And, he kicks right out to right tackle that adds Olu Fashiono they took last year. They have Fields there. We'll see what the Jets are. I mean, again, this is another new coach like the Raiders, like the Patriots. So continuing to just, let's Let's start from the ground and make a statement building up. And then we get to the Panthers. Tetairoa McMillian.
Which is a shock.
Yeah.
Who me and you have been
Loved him.
campaigning
Yes.
that this guy is a top 5 player.
Yes.
And we never understood how he would just organically make it to 12 with the Cowboys. And even Daniel Jeremiah had a mock as low as Seattle.
Yes.
And it's just, I don't think any of us understood it.
People were
No.
not mocking, but I mean putting him on their big boards like in the 50s
Yeah.
that I was seeing.
Yep.
It doesn't
Yep.
make any sense. I mean, and,
Yeah.
and I saw that, I think my coworker brought it to me, and he was like, hey, like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, I think that people are just talking about the draft to talk about the draft. Like, this is a clearly talented player that, I mean, I would have even ranked high in last year's draft if
Yep.
he had come out.
Yes.
And so, looking at that, I'm happy that he fell where he did. It makes a lot of sense. Bryce Young gets another weapon alongside Leggett. And, I mean, with that being said, we don't have to talk about how not good he is compared to the rest of the class because he is good and fits in amongst the most prestigious of this class.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shocker came, as we had mentioned previously, that it seemed like it was going to be Jalen Walker the entire
Yes,
time
yes.
here. And that's what it felt like even at this pick. And I remember being ecstatic when the pick came in because everyone, again, it was Jalen Walker for what seemed to be the last, 2.5 weeks.
Yep.
But again, they go out, they get talent for the young quarterback and hope it works. And I much, much, much more prefer the value of Ted at 8 than Jalen Walker.
Yeah, I mean, this was the swinging point. I think we got we get the trade, but that Monday or last Monday, all of these guys were the betting favorites to go to their spot outside of Tetairoa and McMillian. So it was interesting to kind of sit back and see everybody talk about how unpredictable. How is this
Absolutely.
top 10 going to shake out? The thing that was unpredictable was someone being able to give up Travis Hunter,
Yeah.
but not so the order. And then we get to my Saints, Kelvin Banks, out of Texas, hook 'em horns. It was more so relief that it wasn't Jackson Dart. I have Banks really low on my board, and it's because I don't believe he is a tackle. I
Yeah.
really don't. At this point, I think what his strengths, ironically much like Fuanga last year, his strengths are so much more of anchoring and just being powerful in the run game that contribute to being a guard. And so I don't love it at 9, but it makes me believe that at 10 with the Bears, there was a world that they don't have an opportunity to get him. So, yeah, I mean, my immediate reaction was just relief that it wasn't Jackson Dart.
Yes.
I feel like you guys can both speak for me
And
for
I was
that.
going to say as well, I mean, I briefly talked about how this pick had impacted the Bears as well. Looking at this, there's kind of relief for me as well because I agree with you when it comes to him playing more of a guard position.
Yes.
And judging off of just our free agent acquisitions and trade acquisitions, it doesn't make a lot of sense to draft somebody that would be stronger at guard. So, hearing people chatter about how, oh, man, the Saints kind of screwed us, in a way, kind of, I guess, if you felt like that was a predictable outcome. But to me, I didn't feel like there was a good world where this had happened. So, but I'm extremely excited for you because I do believe that this is going to be a very good interior offensive lineman for you.
Well, anything was going to be better than Jackson Dart
Yes.
this pick.
I mean,
honestly,
that's the thing. Is it really surfaced late? People looking at past drafts. This team has taken offensive line or defensive line in the first round since 2015.
ever. Yes.
So it's, again, I was more into I was excited about the idea that we're gonna trade down. But you think about so many of the teams like the Bears with the smoke of trading up, the Broncos of the smoke of trading up, and even the Saints maneuvering the board because they want to get a quarterback. None of them did anything.
Yep.
The only one that did something was the last 24 hours, and it's Jaguars. So, and of course, at the back half of the first round.
yes.
But those kind of middle spots just kind of deteriorated.
The thing too with Calvin Banks, and I think it was the first thing that had popped into my head because it was something that I had said in previous weeks, is it at least allows you the versatility to try Penning one more time, regardless of what
Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
of Penning. It allows you to stick Penning out there and say, all right, we're going to give you a chance to do this right tackle thing one more time, see if it works. And if it doesn't, well, that's the nice thing about Calvin Banks is some people do view him as tackle and some people view him as guard. So if it works, then you can keep Banks at guard and say, well, great. And if it doesn't, well, then you can kick him out to tackle and see what he has there.
All I'm thinking about is the funniest opportunity that Talise Fuwanga, the right tackle in college, is playing left tackle in the pros, and Kelvin Banks, the left tackle in college, is playing right tackle in the pros. But no, I want to get right into the Bears. The first pick of the Ben Johnson era, Colston Loveland. Let's talk about it.
So, I mean, you guys can, vouch for me here.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing still, just kind of speechless with it, right?
But not a bad or
good reaction. It was just kind of like, we'll trust the process and see how it pans out, which should be, in my opinion, every Bears fan's reaction to this pick.
Absolutely.
Ben Johnson clearly had a say in this. He was a tight ends coach previously, so this is actually a huge, huge thing because he had his pick of the litter essentially. And it's a very talented player nonetheless. He's a good pass catcher, great route runner, can create separation. I'm learning more and more about him as things go on. Obviously, it's not Jeanty, and I think all of Chicago kind of talked themselves into we're getting Ashton Jeanty, especially with all the smoke about them trying to trade up as well. So, even though it could be kind of seen as a letdown, it is, in all honesty, because it's not Ashton Jeanty. And a lot of people had Tyler Warren over Loveland. However, if you look at any draft board that's actually should be good, Loveland's not far behind Warren at all.
No.
And it's different styles of tight ends as well too. But I want you guys to kind of explain to possibly the Bears fans listening as well. What you guys said to me was very impactful, and I don't want to take that away from you guys as far as convincing me, hey, don't jump off the cliff yet. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, if you guys can explain that almost in the same way if you can, you know what I mean? A lot of people will kind of understand it as well.
Well, Loveland was both of our tight end ones. I was pleasantly shocked. I did think Warren was going to be the first tight end taken, but I was very happy. I jumped out of my seat when it was Colston Loveland when I saw that he was the first tight end taken. Again, I think he's a far more fluid mover than what Tyler Warren is. And he actually cares, at least tries to be in blocking. And again, he could develop and work on that, but it offers the 12 personnel flexibility.
This again, it compares so much to 2023 when Laporta goes before Michael Mayer, who kind of falls, not in a similar way to Warren because Mayer fell out of the first round, but still traditional tight end, bigger physical body, wins at the catch point against a kind of a big slot receiver, frankly, in Loveland. And I think this just adds more verticality to, just let's continue to stretch out this defense as much as we can. And I really do believe this. I said to you in the moment, I think it would have costed both seconds to go up there.
And I agree, absolutely. And one of the things that I kind of want to emphasize on as well before we move off of this pick is the fact that all of Chicago, including me, was very confused on what to do now. And it's not necessarily a bad situation to be in because that means we made a lot of acquisitions to make this team in a lot better of a spot than we were in last year, to where we are drafting for positional needs. And so at this point, there's improvements that we could make on the team, but it's not like we don't have a starting caliber person at almost every position. So at this point, it's I was staring at the TV, and I believe that the only reason why my reaction was kind of lackluster is just because I wasn't going to be moved by anything else.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Really it.
Exactly.
I mean, it could have been, a wide receiver doesn't make any sense right now.
No.
You already took one last year. You know what I mean? Defensive back, there's another one in the second round that's really, really good. In fact, multiple defensive backs. But, if you want a corner, if you want a safety, there's options there for it. You know what I mean? Linebacker, I wouldn't have been thrilled with. I'll be honest with you. That's not a top 10, pick. That's probably one of them that I would have felt a little off on. But, I mean, edge rusher, interior D-line, there's options available for that, and I don't think I would have been, necessarily moved as much. But people need to credit this for more of a sexier look than it actually, is because, even though it's not a receiver or anything, Loveland still can be treated as one.
He's the best pass catcher on the board.
Exactly.
Yep,
So,
board.
because of that, this is gonna be fun. Strap in.
Yep.
Ben Johnson's cooking.
Exactly.
So
He put a stamp on his first draft.
Yep.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, he teared up when he made that call, and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's cool to see a coach get into it that much. So,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Well,
It's his first pick as head coach. That was his reasoning for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you get to 11 with the Niners. This had to be defensive line, and it was just your pick of the litter. I think I would prefer Stewart. I would have preferred Mike
Walter
Green.
Nolen.
Yeah, Walter Nolen. They clearly, preferred Mikel Williams, which
Can't
I
knock a
get.
team.
Yeah, I get it. It's even if I had him in the 20s on my personal board, I can't knock it. The guy's only 21. I think he turns 21 in June, frankly, and it's all just ascension at this point for him. It's theoretical ascension. He walks in the door, much like Trayvon Walker did, not at this, the number one pick, but a just run floor, run setter. Still got to figure out all that, the pass rush stuff. But if he figures out the speed to power and really grows into his frame, he's going to be a knockout of the park.
Absolutely.
I really believe that.
A little bit
Absolutely.
earlier than I would have preferred.
Yeah.
But definitely
it was
get
their
it.
choice. You can't knock. Yeah, you can't knock a team for taking their guy. Again, the need was at defensive line, and they took who they felt was the best one available at that point.
Absolutely. And then Dallas.
Oh,
This is the
we
first
laughed,
time. This is the
chuckled.
first time we laughed.
Yep.
Tyler Booker at 12. So the thing about Tyler Booker is it could be a great pick. But the thing about Banks is that I said with Banks, I took, you take a guard at 9. But there is a theoretical possibility of him playing tackle and being fine at it.
Yes.
You took a straight-up guard at 12, Matthew Golden, Marion Hampton, even if I'm lower on him. You had an opportunity, even a Tyler Warren, to get an opportunistic, offensive skill player. And you just took a guard again. It's at this point where it's like, I've said, Jerry don't care.
He does
And
not.
Again, he's got to skimp somewhere.
Yep.
Because he's got to skimp because the Dak contract is the richest quarterback contract, the richest contract in NFL history. CD's just got paid. We make the joke, Michael Parsons is going to get paid on Labor Day. And so, yeah, Tyler Guyton and Tyler Booker, Tyler Smith. I thought my favorite pick for them is their center, Cooper Beebe.
Yeah.
And so they have a very young, cost-effective offensive line. I just did not like
Didn't
Booker
like the
here.
pick.
Didn't
Yeah.
like Booker here.
Didn't like the pick. The thought process,
Yeah.
I think, can be justified, given I think there was needs at skill position players. But the way that the board has fallen now at this point, and we'll get into it at the end of the episode, it has been beneficial for them. But again, he needed to go to a team in which they didn't ask him to move because he is a people mover, very strong, very powerful, but does not move very well.
I think that they absolutely could have moved back a little bit to get this guy
Yes.
as well,
Yeah.
but also recoup a little bit of draft capital and maybe get a few more players in this year's draft as well. But just like we said for the previous pick, you can't really knock them too much for getting their guy. It's just 11's a little rich.
And that's the thing too, is it seems like that's the theme of any fan base. It's like, let's move down. I just said it with my Saints. Like, let's move down. And you think about the next trade that happened was at 25. So it really it tells you that nobody wanted to come up.
No.
Everyone was kind of just like, yeah, I think we're fine with the tiers of how our guys are, that we don't really have to go get one. The next trade ended up being a quarterback, and we know quarterback's its own little, tier
Right.
in terms of team building. So it was just fascinating. You get to the Dolphins, Kenny Grant, ironically in the same pick Christian Wilkins was taken with at 13.
I didn't know that.
And
yeah.
you get your exact replacement. I don't think there's much to add here. I
No.
would have, I like Harmon, I liked Nolen, but if you wanted size and athleticism,
He was the guy for it.
Yes, he was the guy to take, so I cannot knock it. And then the Colts, they get their guy at 14. He naturally falls to you. You don't have to move. There was some buzz with them moving, possible.
Yeah.
And so
Match made in heaven here.
yeah,
Yep.
you still get Warren. It's they compared him. They said Gronk light.
Yeah.
And when you watch this guy in open space, he plays with Gronk physicality. I give him that. But the only thing is well, he had to go to someone creative.
Mm-hmm.
And can Steichen be bring enough creativity to really challenge Warren and, continue to do what's right for this quarterback, whoever it is, Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. Then we get to 15. Georgia kid goes to Atlanta. Jalen Walker. This was one of those where I think you forgot about him.
I forgot he was on the board because, like we said, we're so used to him being at 8.
So often with him there. But, again, our thoughts on Jalen Walker are pretty easy. I had him as my 19th player. He's a small edge rusher with small arms, and he's still figuring out everything. So it's really hard to just gamble on this guy in the top 10. I thought this was a reasonable range for him.
Yes.
I would have still taken Stewart, but again, Walker is a different type of pass rusher, so I understand the pick.
More palatable at 15 than it was at 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we knew they had the need at edge, and they filled it twice in this draft, and we'll get into the second one later on. But I see the thought process behind it and where they were going. So.
And then we get to Nolen. I mean, me and you,
We love him.
we love Nolen. I have him in my top 10 players. I just overall what this guy's skill set of being just a one gapper thumper in a just the athletic tools. It's one of those things. I think I want to say the stock exchange guys said it pretty bad. You can't quit him because you see enough Jalen Carter in him.
Yes.
It's not like this overwhelming Jalen Carter, overall 100%, but there's enough tight plays of just all-pro impact from him that I certainly could not get over. I know the consistency thing is what dings him the most, but you're putting him now in a room with Dalvin Tomlinson, veteran, and Calais Campbell, veteran. So you're kind of just filling out the room. You bring in Josh Sweat.
It's going to be a fun defensive. Josh Sweat,
That's how you
Darius
rebuild
Robinson last year,
Yeah.
as you said, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell. It's going to be a fun defensive line, and I value pick at 16 too.
Yeah.
You guys took the words out of my mouth. I was literally Googling the depth chart so I can make sure that I'm saying the right people, and you guys completely nailed it. Yeah, everything that I was going to say, they just said.
Just continue to build out their room. And then we get to 17.
Did you know they needed edge?
I did, and there was a ton of beat reporters in Cincinnati talking about how the fans want an edge rusher more than the team does. And then they took one at 17 anyway. They take a super athlete in Shemar Stewart, who compares a lot to Miles Murphy, who they took a few years ago.
Yes, yep.
Does this make the Trey Hendricks... Does it make it even more interesting than it already is? Because they didn't trade for him. They didn't trade him away in this first round, which would be hard for a 30-year-old player in any world to get a first-round pick. But just overall, you now have Stewart, Osai, Miles Murphy. You have a ton of bodies in that room that is this going to come to a point where we're in July and Trey Hendrickson's not a Cincinnati Bengal? I feel like we said, he feels like the odd man out, and he's felt like that for a while, and especially when both of those receivers get paid and you take an edge in the first round. It seems like it's just trending in a way, and now it makes it interesting. What if Ryan's team on the end is really into an edge too? No?
Hey,
Ah.
I don't know.
Well,
You'd
we'll see how it goes.
You'd entertain
I would. I am, actually.
Yeah.
I'm entertaining it right now.
That's fun to think about.
I think it would have been interesting if Tyler Booker was here, because that was the smoke that has kind of arisen the last couple
Someone
days.
said Donovan Jackson. I heard less than a week ago that I was interested in that.
Interested, but I think it would have been a reach.
With
the guard that they seemingly liked off the table at that point, it made the pick very easy.
Yeah. And then we get to, speaking of guard, we get to Seattle. And
The pick we didn't think was going to happen.
What did I say for 3 months? I said John Schneider, in the first round, he does not pick interior offensive linemen. He picks value positions. Matthew Golden is on the board. He's going to pick a receiver. Cooper Kupp's contract's basically a one-year contract. You had Egbuka in the last mock draft.
Yep.
And the MFer picks a guard. And he
Whoa.
picks Gray Zabel. The most
Good
common
pick.
guard.
Great
Yes.
pick. We can't
Yeah.
say that enough. We
Yes.
love the pick. We just didn't think it was going to happen because, like you said, they don't
do that.
do it. But it was a great pick.
I mean,
Gray
one of the
Zabel's
things
awesome
that
there.
I noticed last year is, I mean, hey, their quarterback now, Sam Darnold, plays really well when he's not under a lot of pressure. So you want to get a guard.
He's not a creator.
Exactly. And so you want to get a guard that can kind of protect him more on the inside a lot easier so that, you have more stability in this offense and you can get it to weapons like JSN and, now Cooper Kupp.
And that's the thing, too. Like, just adding a little, like, Saints insight with Clint Kubiak being their new OC. He was the Saints OC this past year. A lot of wide zone stuff. He wants his guards to be able to move.
Yep.
And Gray Zabel is the best mover at guard in this draft for me. And then you get to Tampa Bay. They pick Emeka Egbuka.
Not expected here whatsoever.
No, and especially after you pay Chris Godwin, Egbuka projects as a slot player. It's just a fascinating fit. Because I thought this team was edge all the way.
Yes.
Yep.
And I guess seemingly the guys go just enough ahead of them that, you pivot to another premium position. But this was where I thought Will Johnson. And, of course, we'll talk about Will Johnson and what was reported tonight. But it was not where I expected it. But, again, we've said it. It's hard to picture Egbuka as a bad pro.
Yes, exactly. It's not. I don't think it's a bad pick. I think you got a good player at a position of value. But again, it was just it was weird coming off of the back of the Godwin signing. I'm blanking on his name. The Washington wide receiver from last year. McMillian.
Yeah. Yep.
He played well when he stepped in, given different roles, but it didn't seem like it was a position of need for them. But again, I don't think it's going to be bad. It's never bad to have his great pass catchers. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, I do want to mention as well, part of my concern right now is Chris Godwin's recovery from that nasty injury. So, I mean, just doing a little bit of research, the Buccaneers can save a little bit of money in 2027 if Chris Godwin were to get cut. So in the scenario that's something that they have to consider,
they entertain you.
You'll have Emeka Egbuka for 5 years, and then only 2 years of Chris Godwin, and this is somebody that can come in and fill those shoes while he recovers if he needs more time.
Absolutely. And then you get to 20. There's Marion Hampton for 2 months.
Yep.
And then Marion Hampton's on the board, and they pick Jahdae Barron, and it seems like this was a swerve. That they thought Miami was going to take Jahdae Barron, and all of a sudden, he's here at 20. I'm just most fascinated to see where he plays because
I hope it's in the nickel.
Yeah, and that's what my always the knocking for him is that I think he's a nickel with not as much of athletic tools as a guy like Cooper DeJean taken last year.
Yep.
Or even Trent McDuffie a few years ago. Like these really statement-making nickels who have this overwhelming athleticism. I don't think Barron has that. He can fly. He ran 4.3 at the combine, and that really helped his stock overall. But him playing on the outside, it's tough.
I don't think he has a movement ability. I don't think he's
Yeah.
fluid to be on the outside. Again, it was shocking because they had a very good defense this year. And the fact that Hampton was the pick that everyone talked about, and we said, well, it's going to be Hampton or Will or one of the wide receivers, and it ended up being none of them. Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and then we get to pick 21. That was the most watched pick round the country.
sure.
And they picked a defensive tackle out of Oregon, Derek Harmon, who I love. I have him at 21 on my board, so that was fun for me to see him go here. But what is most fascinating with the Steelers, I noticed it in real time, is they don't have a second. So this completely tells me Rodgers is going to be there.
Yep.
And that is the plan. And another thing is like we talked about it, last night, is like when everybody's like, well, they get Rodgers for a year, they have a plan with Shador. When has this team ever really taken a plan approach? They took Pickett with 20 because they needed to and things like that. But just overall, clearly they valued Harmon and the interior defensive line more so than, quarterback, which is
Absolutely.
which is crazy to think about, but it also speaks to what we believe of Shador.
Yeah.
So, and then we get to Amarian Hampton at 22 with the Chargers. This seemed like a spot where your Eagles were trying to come up, and like we were watching it, like they took this down to the final
They
seconds.
did, yeah.
I don't know if they were trying to wring Howie dry to kind of, show him up, or, they just panicked last second and said it's not enough. Let's just sprint in the running back. I personally don't get it.
I love
it. Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. But so you go. You take the lead. I don't want to.
I love it. So obviously you think back to Jim Harbaugh and his usage at Michigan when it comes to running backs, and he loves his running backs, and he loves having kind of your power running back and then your
Dual
pass
threats,
catching
yeah.
running back. And that's exactly what he has now with Najee and Hampton. Najee's only on a 1-year contract, so you can kind of wean him into that role in his first year, and then going into next year, he can kind of take that step into becoming a full bell cow back. And I thought it was amazing. I mean, early in the process, I had Hampton going 22 quite often to the Chargers. Yeah. I just didn't think he was going to make it to 22 because I thought he was going to be at 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. I love Amarian Hampton as it is. And Najee Harris is one of those signings that you just kind of forget about.
Yeah.
He kind of fell through the cracks of that, and I don't think anybody was necessarily in a solid rush to get this guy on their team.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, you said it was a 1-year deal. Hampton, can definitely fill that gap after that year if that's, something that they have to consider. But overall, I think he's got a good committee now. I would say he upgraded. He's got Najee
absolutely.
After Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins moved to Amarian Hampton and Najee Harris, I'll take that 10 times out of 10, especially for a run-heavy offense.
Yeah, and it's just interesting parallels to how 2023 went, where the Lions signed Montgomery, but they still are, the Chargers don't trade up, but the Lions trade up for Gibbs, and they kind of like, oh, what are they doing here?
There you go, yeah.
You just create a thunder and lightning. I think it's...
I was hoping he fell in the second round, but
yeah.
I couldn't get that lucky. So,
and then we get to Green Bay.
This was just fun.
This one was... I know it's hard for you, but, truly, Mark Murphy
He killed it.
Crowd.
It was great.
He teed up that crowd amazing. He said, for the first time since 2002, and, the anticipation builds, and he drops Matthew Golden in Green Bay's lap, and they lost their minds, as they should. This is a fantastic player he is a 4-2 athlete. I don't know if he plays to it as much on film, but again, I think everyone's going to make the joke, adding another wide receiver to the room. But outside of Tet or even Travis Hunter, there was no other, receiver one in this class. I think you just continue to throw bodies at the problem. This makes anybody outside of Jaden Reed, would we agree?
Yes.
Expendable into the next few days? What
yes.
If you're thinking, you just reset the Dobbs clock. You kind of send out Dobbs for something. It seemed like when me and you were going down to the combine, it seemed they were all in on DK.
Yep.
And so they swing and miss on him. I think there was a lot of buzz with the Jaden Higgins because he compares a lot to DK. But, yeah, Matthew Golden's a better player. And overall, you just keep throwing bodies at the problem.
He'll step right in and take over for Christian Watson.
Just
recovering,
happy.
and then when the contract's done.
Oh, yeah, that guy,
he's done. I'm sorry.
Sadly.
I'm just happy we re-signed Kyler Gordon. That's all I can say. Yep. He's going to be guarding Matthew Golden for a very long time. So.
Absolutely. And then Minnesota, we don't have to spend much time on this. This was a team I always expected to trade down. They have 4 picks in this draft. They kind of sprinted this one in, and it's a guard. They sign Will Fries. They sign Ryan Kelly. I understand that, the left guard spot is a little up in the air, but this really tells me they are putting every chip in the possible basket for J.J. McCarthy to succeed.
Absolutely.
Which is what you should do with a rookie quarterback, because that's essentially what he is.
Yep.
You should. I think this pick, though, for reasons for, player we'll get down in just a little bit, was the most shocking to me
Mm-hmm.
was because I didn't think it was going to be Donovan Jackson there. I thought for sure, without a doubt, it was going to be Malachi Starks.
Yep.
So when it came in as Donovan Jackson, which, again, grand scheme of things, looking at it for just the pick it is, I think it's a fine pick.
Yeah.
But then when you start looking down the board and you're like, well, Malachi Starks was there, I would have liked that one a bit better.
Absolutely. Anything to add, Ryan?
No, I mean just overall,
Yeah.
You gotta guard Grady Jarrett twice a year now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you gotta fix that. You know what I mean?
And then you get to the next trade of the evening. The Giants take Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss the first time.
Let me correct you on that draft call. Not the Saints.
Not the Saints.
Not the
Jackson
Saints.
Dart.
took
Not the
Jackson
Saints.
Dart.
Jackson Dart. The dream is still alive on my back. Shador Sanders. But overall,
Crazy.
to go up to 25 and to get a player that I had ranked, no lie, 85th on my board. Thank God it wasn't the Saints.
Yeah.
Because you have to give up assets to go get him, and it's just, it is what it is.
Yep.
It's a gimmicky offense. I understand the traits. I understand the arm is NFL caliber. I don't think it's this overworldly arm that's going to change football games.
Yep.
But this team needed to do something, and so I guess going up to 25 and being able to give up some thirds. It wasn't astronomical. They move up 9 spots, and in the process giving up 2 thirds. 1 third is in 2026. That might not matter to Joe Shane, but again, they leave with an impactful edge rusher, and they leave with a quarterback that you're crossing your fingers is the future.
Yes.
So
And hey, how about Joe Shane's son spoiling that pick before the draft even happened, before the trade even
that's
happened?
ultimate lore if he succeeds. That's ultimate lore.
Yep. Yeah. Be like, well, I let you guys know about it first. That's cool.
I have to imagine if he has access.
Dude, imagine this though. If that's the same kid that said you should draft Jaden Daniels and you're good at Jackson Dart, if that's what you're referring to, it just clicked in real time. But like this,
Get that kid a GM.
Yeah.
He's 2 for 2.
All of a sudden, that guy that just got hired from the Jaguars, that's only accomplishment was being a scout and a high school football coach. Now has to compete with Shane's son.
Joe Shane's son.
You're on the hot seat already, bud. Watch out.
Hey, James Gladstone pulled off Travis Hunter, so
He did.
So we'll
he gets
we'll take time.
He gets his credit. Yeah.
But yeah, and then the trades just started pouring because the very next pick, the Atlanta Falcons trade 20 spots to get in front of whoever, assuming Baltimore, I guess.
Yeah.
To get James Pierce Jr. And in the process, they give up a first-round pick next year.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to take James Pierce after you take Jalen Walker. You take 2 undersized pass rushers who seemingly the James Pierce smoke was a lot of, off
Shocker.
the
If
field
only
stuff.
someone would have said it was just smoke.
I understand. But, no, just overall, this was a team that really wanted to revamp their D-line and their edge.
They did that.
And it's fascinating to see how a year later, because I don't know if we remember this, but they take Michael Penix early, and that's all anybody remembers. What I remember is trading for Rukaroro.
Yeah.
Who did we hear his name? No. Braylon Trice has an injury before the season.
Got
Brandon
hurt.
Dorlus was, for a rookie, passable.
Yeah.
But they still are so inclined to have to get 2 first-round edge rushers, and in the process giving up a future pick.
Yes, yeah, no, they got 26, which they obviously took James Pierce at 104, and they give up 46, a 7th rounder, and then next year's first for it. So they obviously had to really, really love this guy to give up a next year's first for him. It's crazy, but it shows the need that they have. And again, it was conversations that we had before the draft. Was one of the biggest questions was, where's James Pierce going to go? Because those character concerns seem to be something that was such a big deal, but obviously not to the Falcons.
Yep.
And then we get to, the most Ravens pick of all time. The Ravens just get Malachi Starks. Again, it's another, it's just value at, a low premium position. But They did this with Kyle Hamilton. They did this with Tyler Linderbaum. And now they do this with Malachi Starks. It's, again, he's going to play on the field. He's going to get on the field for them.
Yeah.
And this could maybe, if you want to play him at nickel, you could kick Marlon Humphrey back outside. I don't know if he has the overall athleticism still in his body to play on the outside. But you take Nate Wiggins last year, you're just really stacking that secondary in a big way. Kyle Hamilton's coming due down the line for a contract. I imagine he'll
get the bag.
He puts ink to paper before the season.
Yeah.
And so you just stack that secondary even more in a real way. And, it takes Marcus Williams off the field, which was a good thing for them over the course of the last few years. And then you get to, the Lions. This was my best bet.
It was amazing.
So, yeah, I got Tyleik Williams to go in the first round before Tom Pelissero even had his article on, surprise guys.
Yeah.
And it was frankly because I viewed this class as, I think this is a when you don't know what to pick and you kind of rank everybody similar, you just take the trench guys. And
Absolutely.
I saw this as a 5 interior lineman draft. And I thought Tyleik Williams was a perfect candidate of just floor nose tackle that just walks in the building, is an instant impact for a Super Bowl team. This wasn't even the team I expected. He still goes here. I expected, Buffalo to be in play, and they could have still been in play.
They could have, yeah.
But just overall, get a good floor-setting player.
It was a bit shocking considering the edge rushers that were still on the board at that point, in Donovan Ezeraku and Mike Green, guys that didn't even get drafted in the first round at this point. But again, high floor player, you can't knock it, and I'm sure Dan Campbell is going to love the grit that this guy brings to the team.
Absolutely. You think Caleb Williams is going to have fun facing this guy twice a year?
I mean, it's going to add a little bit more pressure to it, but I think that we're prepared at least a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Absolutely.
because, fix that interior line. But, it's going to be a little tough if we can't get these older guys replaced correctly.
Absolutely. And then you get to the Commanders. One of my guys, Josh Connerly, goes off at 29. It's just one of those things. These athletic, young, pass-protecting tackles, they do not stay on the board. This one is fascinating, though, because left tackle in college, they trade for Laramie Tunsil. They took Brandon Coleman out of TCU last year, and he played well down the stretch. You're kind of just... You're jumbling things a little bit.
Yes.
Sam Cosmi's going to be out for most of next season with the torn ACL late enough. So it's just, again, this was kind of a boring pick in, conjunction to what, we had mocked running back here. This could have absolutely been a Donovan Ezeraku team.
Absolutely.
But, again, I think Connerly's an easy player to project, just an upside. Just grow some weight in that frame and get an anchor, man. But
I mean, I know you don't know much about this as a Bears fan, but
hot start.
The goal is to protect your young quarterbacks.
Oh yeah, I know nothing of that. Actually.
As a Bears fan, they know nothing about that,
Yep.
and that's exactly what they did. You can't knock a team for trying to build a very good offensive line around their very special young quarterback.
Very overrated. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just a hater, honestly.
You're a little loopy, buddy. No. But, and then we get to 30 with the Buffalo Bills. This one is, ironically, we saw eye to eye on this player pretty much. But you take the lead on this one. I clearly see this.
Yes. So here is, I think, the perfect spot to have that Will Johnson talk. Mm-hmm. Right?
Oh, man.
Because as it went down, I think around the halfway mark, kind of that bomb dropped for Will Johnson that, well, a lot of teams had this red flag about his knee and maybe has this really big knee issue. Mm-hmm. And that's why we saw a guy that we had in our top 10 completely fall out of the first round. And I would not have at all been shocked if Bills would have said, screw it, we still really, really like him. We'll take him here. But even if you take all of the Will Johnson stuff and throw it out the window, I still don't think Maxwell Harrison was the best corner on the board. I absolutely would have taken at least Trey Amos in front of him.
Yeah.
We both, I see Savone Revel as the number 2 corner in this class.
Savone.
Will Johnson was my number 1. I think Amos would definitely be in play. Even an underrated guy that I love in this class, if you want to play, because I project Harrison as a nickel.
Yes.
What about Jacob Parrish maybe not at 30.
But you wait and you
have
can get
2
him-
seconds. They have 2
Exactly.
seconds. It's fascinating to see them really address corner in a massive way. But hey, Maxwell Hairston, he bet on himself going to the green room and he got out of it.
And it
He
paid
escaped.
out. Yeah.
He escaped
paid
the
out.
green room, and sometimes that doesn't happen for some guys.
One guy left.
And then we get to your Eagles. They trade 1 pick, and they trade up 1 pick, and they only traded 1 pick, which was 164. Yeah. So you go ahead. I mean, this is a player we love.
I loved it. We loved him.
loved
We
him.
absolutely loved him. And if you had listened to the mock draft that we put out before, I'm like, I need to find a way for the Eagles to get up and get him. And obviously, Eagles loved him too. As Matt had mentioned a little bit earlier on,
Yes.
the Eagles had tried to, at least with the Chargers and Packers, make their way up to get this guy. But how he was able to get a top 10 player that we both see all the way at 31 for
And the high fives he was given, it didn't feel like the torn labrum was really, holding him
Exactly.
back.
Exactly. I absolutely love the pick. I couldn't have been more ecstatic. Again, at 8 o'clock in the morning today, that is the pick that I said, this is who I want the Eagles to pick. It's exactly what it is, and how he continues to kill it, man.
Absolutely. And for me and you, Ryan, I mean, we just watched this guy keep winning,
The
man.
rich gets rich.
He just
richer.
keeps winning.
It's insane. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I said it in the moment, it would have been fascinating to see where, like, in a vacuum, if you know Jahdae Campbell can make it to 32, or 31 in this case,
Absolutely.
is Zach Bond still around? But again, I quickly corrected myself that it's like, this team didn't have much needs anyway.
Yeah.
You could have thrown another edge rusher at it. Oh, we lost Josh Webb. Just throw Donovan Ezeraku at this
Exactly.
equation.
Hey, I just gotta say, rooting for your success, praying for your downfall. all right?
Yep. It's just, I don't know. Again, I couldn't have been more ecstatic. And again, you bring up Zach Bond, but now imagine these two guys playing
Yes, absolutely.
alongside each other.
Yes.
And as long as the Eagles, again, obviously don't seem to think that the torn labrum is going to be a thing. And if it's not a big deal, you were able to get a top 10 player in this class all the way at 31.
And ironically, it gives you Bond, former edge rusher, and Jahdae Campbell his first year at Alabama, edge rusher. So you just create such an athletic 11-man lineup, taking Quinyon and Cooper DeJean last year, and now adding Jahdae Campbell to the equation, and you still have another pick at 64. So interesting. And then we get to my steal, frankly. I have been all
great.
over Josh Simmons the entire process. I think this is a top 10 player in this class. Speed, power, athleticism, that is what you desire out of your left tackle. And the only thing that held this guy back was a patella tendon injury. And then it's what held me back. I had him in my low teens kind of early enough. And then I watched the guy move at his pro day. And I was like, okay,
He's
all right.
perfectly fine. He's healthy.
Shoot him back up. I
Yep.
think he's fine. And, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs get him. I know Ryan has his beliefs on Kansas City and taking another guy here that I think,
If he played all 12 games, he would
Best
have
tackle in the
been
draft.
the best tackle.
best tackle.
Absolutely.
I think this guy's being taken where Membou's taken. At
100%.
And, I mean, Dana Jeremiah made a great point of, like, the last 2 Super Bowls that they have lost have been because of tackle play.
Yep.
Frankly, you lose to the Buccaneers, and then you lose to the Eagles this past February, and now you get a guy like Josh Simmons to kind of just grow and mold. This also tells me Kingsley Suamataia, guard, through and through. Let's figure that out because, of course, they trade Tooney. But overall, again, it also is another thing, like the Bond thing. If you knew Josh Simmons was a player you could get at 32, is Jalon Moore signed? No.
Absolutely not.
And so it's like, it's hard to picture this as a long-term or short-term value, I should
Yes,
say. Long-term value, it could really work out. But short-term, you're now paying both Moore and Simmons in a combined range of, $20 million, which is the standard for good tackle play,
Yes.
and you're likely going to give it to Simmons, a rookie.
Yes,
So it's interesting.
exactly. So before we move on to the guys that didn't get drafted, really quickly, obviously I know the answer to one of the questions, but who do you guys think the biggest steal of the draft was within the first round? And for you, Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
Who do you think it was for yourself? And then I got a follow-up question for the both of y'all.
Can I say Mason Graham based off of the trade? Because I feel like they got to
Okay,
steal.
I love that.
I love it.
You know what I mean? Like, they got to steal from, it's a beast of a guy that's going to be in that D-line. But they also, now they have a second-round pick that they could use.
Yes.
Now they have a first-round pick for next year. Cleveland accomplished what they wanted to. I know it cost them, Travis Hunter, which is a huge, huge blow. And we apologize to our buddy that's going crazy right now at home for it.
Yeah.
But, that would probably be my steal of the draft, I
love
would
the
say.
thought process here.
Either that or I will say I really, really like Amari Hampton as well to the Chargers. That's a huge, huge. Oh, Packers getting Golden as well.
Oh, poor buddy.
I mean, I have to admit it's a good pick. There's no way I would have mocked him there. I felt like he was going to go a little bit earlier.
Much earlier,
so I would say that would be at least a couple, contenders for that title. But,
Yeah. For myself, it was Campbell.
Yep.
Or Malachi Starks. These are two top of the class players that you were able to get at the back end of round one. And then just follow-up question, last one for you guys. Not the worst pick, but who was the most surprising selection at the time when you saw the name across the board? For me, it is easily Emeka Egbuka. Not because I don't think he's bad, just because I did not think there was even going to be a conversation for them to take them because of the guys that they already had at the position and going out and paying them. And you guys can also say Emeka Egbuka as well. But that, for me, it was easily Emeka Egbuka.
It's Tyler Booker. That's mine. I mean, I have him. I want to say at my lineman number 4 on my big board, which was when we did that in late February of this year. So I mean, it could have changed over and it did. Yeah. But I was a big fan of him. I don't think that they got a bad player. I cannot emphasize on that enough. Just a little too early for our liking.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I share the similar belief with you with Booker because it's just hard to imagine that you pass on another offensive, skill player again with limited capacity of picks. Like your team has 2 early seconds to really fill those needs, and even your team took a skilled, pass catcher. Yes. So it's fascinating to see another, offensive lineman. This makes this Tyler Smith in 22. And then last year with Guyton, and now Tyler Booker, it's just they clearly have a plan in place to skimp on that offensive line. And Booker is what he is. Yeah, what you're getting is what you get with him. And at 12, little rich that it did surprise me.
Yep.
But so before we leave this, I want to do something with the 3 of us. Let's do, a second-round mock draft. And I'm not saying let's do all the picks. I think we take this down to Dallas. Personally.
44. Yep.
I think Dallas is the place we stop.
First 12 picks.
There's enough players on the board of surprise being on the board, especially, a Will Johnson, a Luther Burden, a Mike Green, that I think we could have some fun with this. So I don't think there's any,
I'd like to start if we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I say the person I want, there seems to be a massive candidate for you. So go ahead and talk.
For me, I think it's Shemar. As heartbreaking as it is for you, it's Shemar. Yeah. They have the need at quarterback, and
I was gonna go there. That's actually
there you go. I'm glad we're all in agreement.
It should be Shemar then.
And I apologize. It sucks for yourself, but it's an easy pick, and we'll see. I think it's going to be really interesting over the next 18 hours, the reaction.
How heartbreaking would that be if Shedeur makes it to 33 and they traded out at Travis Hunter?
Yes.
Because that was something that I think the 3 of us talked about a few hours before the draft of how awesome would that be? No matter what our opinions on Shedeur or Travis are, that'd be an awesome combo. And then Deion can coach them next year. But you get to Houston. Is Houston the biggest loser of round 1? They trade out. They trade completely out of the first round. They pick up, what was the future 3rd, which they have to get back because of the Laramie Tunsil trade, in 99, and they're left with a tackle market of Ariante Ursary and then Ozzie Trapino, and then you have like Marcus Mbao, Jonas Savanier,
guard. Yeah.
And so it makes it interesting. I think this might be receiver, and I think this is Luther Burden.
Yes.
I think he's too
Yes.
good.
Yes.
I think he's too good on the board. And what if there's a world where, just playing devil's advocate, Tennessee really wants Luther Burden. How much? I don't think it would take a lot to go and get him, but would Cleveland be in fear of someone jumping them to get Shedeur? It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this has to be Burden. He's too good on the board to pass up, and I don't want to reach on the guard or the tackle or either guard. Even if Cam Robinson can band-aid this, and we could figure this out later.
Absolutely.
Get to the Titans.
Edge. I think continue to draft the most valuable position you can.
Yep.
You already hit the quarterback. Go ahead and hit the edge. There are two guys that we didn't see making it here.
Yeah.
At this point, it's really, really hard. I'm a Donovan Ezraku guy. And it seems like people do have concerns about Mike Green.
Yep.
And that's why he made it this far down. So I'm going to go Donovan Ezraku because, again, there seems to have at least some of those character concerns there with Mike Green.
Yeah. And again, Ezraku's another guy. It's like what you see was he is a pass rush specialist.
Yep.
He plays the run hard in a strong physicality way. It's just lighter body type. It's hard to project. I understand why he's out of the first round. I don't expect him to wait too long in day 2.
No.
I think for, Cleveland, I think this is, they're wanting Burden. I think you can make.
That was who I was hoping to drop, so I could go ahead and just
Yeah.
be like sprint the ticket up there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so clear to me that should be the pick there. And I feel like if they can leave the second round with both Shedeur and Luther Burden, then they will. So if it doesn't fall the exact way that we have it here, then that's what I expect. But at this point, I mean, I'll let you continue because there's a lot of guys on here that I think Cleveland could go. It's kind of an unpredictable pick.
Yeah, I immediately lean corner. I just do. I think Denzel Ward is getting up there, and Greg Newsome's coming up on a new contract soon enough that I think you need to get an impact player on the outside. And I think Savone Revel is the perfect guy for me. He's in the top 30 on my board, and just overall, you don't have to rush him on the field.
Nope.
He has the athleticism and the tools to play as an outside corner. I think this is a pretty easy pick for me. It's maybe a controversial pick because of Will Johnson being on the board, but this Will Johnson stuff, it really has me scrambling now, and I can't imagine what NFL teams are saying about a red flagged knee injury.
Well, yeah. Well, and the benefit for them is they've probably at least known this for a little bit. We've had 4 hours to digest this.
All right.
I think for the Raiders, this is easy as well. I think it's corner.
Yep.
Will Johnson was a name that they had mocked to him early, but again, there's that concern there. And I'm sorry, Ryan, but
Yeah.
I think it's Trey Amos.
No. No. That's okay.
Again, the Raiders, Pete Carroll is going to be haunting you.
Pete
man.
Carroll must have snuck into
'Cause
Ryan's
this is corner.
bedroom.
This is absolutely corner for them.
I just want to say there's absolutely another defensive back that I am strongly considering taking in this.
I wonder who that could be.
So, hey, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. I've mocked him a lot. And
We'll come back
so,
to you. We'll come back to you. We got 2 Bears coming up
Yep.
real soon.
Yes.
You get to the Patriots, of course. Take Will Campbell. This one's easy for me. I'm gonna take it right away. I think it's Higgins. I think Higgins is. It's simple, but again, I think he meshes well with what a Diggs skill set is. And again,
Yep.
Diggs should never be stopping you.
No.
Especially with the way his contract structure is. From taking a guy like Jaden Higgins early, you take Will Campbell, you take Jaden Higgins, you were just loading up and saying, listen, Drake May, everything. Let's throw it all at the dartboard.
I wouldn't be shocked if it was a running back, if there was a running back that you really, really loved here.
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked, but no pushback. Again, they obviously need those outside weapons, but 39.
Yeah.
I immediately clicked the position.
It's funny because I'm thinking two things, and it's not that. for
Whoa!
either.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So here's
I know
the
where your
thing.
head's at for one of them, but
So here's the thing. Will Johnson's got a knee injury, okay? And we've got a guy that's been playing starting corner for that outside that can potentially hold the fort down until
Yeah.
he gets healthy enough to where we feel comfortable starting him, okay? So that's option number one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Also, option number two, Donovan Ezeraku is
He was
sitting there.
taken.
He was?
yep,
Yeah, it's Mike Green.
Mike Green's the one.
Ezeraku went Tennessee.
Oh,
that's all right.
I completely tapped on Mike Green
That's
first, so
right.
I apologize.
Would you rather
So-
prefer Mike Green?
So Mike Green is on the board, so that's another option that I'm going with. But for this, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll go ahead and take my guy here then. I'll take Watts.
Okay.
Xavier Watts.
I like it.
At 39. I think running back I can wait one more pick on.
Yes.
So
oh, yeah.
that's where I'm at.
Yep.
Yeah, I could take Trevian Henderson just to mess with you, but I won't. I
Yeah.
won't.
Like you did with our quick mock draft. Yeah.
I think this is an easy Tyler Shuck. I think the Saints are
I'm so glad you made this pick.
very heavily invested in Tyler Shuck. I had Tyler Shuck ranked higher than Jackson Dart, so I think you're getting a better player personally.
Yeah. Yes.
And overall, it's the Saints cannot leave without a quarterback at this point with how much digging they've done. It would feel underwhelming, even in a bad quarterback class. It would still feel underwhelming in a way. So taking Tyler Shuck, I'm not in love with it. I think Mike Green would be a fascinating player, but again, it's hard to see him fitting with that, the Mickey Loomis, the 6'5", 260 kind of mold of edge rusher. But overall, it brings your Chicago Bears, and I have to imagine this is a running back.
It's exactly who you think it is. It's
From
Travion
Ohio
Henderson.
State.
Yep.
Yeah.
That guy he's gonna fit the scheme a lot easier. And so between him and Swift, it's gonna be a really, really fun backfield to deal with. But it's really, really tough for me because I also think that we can also live in a world where they can push Swift one more year and kind of miss out on this running back class, even though it'd be really disappointing. But, push that and then get a Will Johnson because he's available, and that's a guy that shouldn't be here but is. But, I mean, obviously there's injuries and stuff like that we didn't know about previous to it. But, I mean, is the value of him that much greater than the need of running back is the question that I have. It's going to be interesting to see how they play it out. I mean, if those picks are not very spaced out at all.
No.
So, I mean, they have potential to go up and get a guy that, can really impact this team. And I do think the two people that I mentioned, Watts subbing in for Brisker and then Henderson, who, I mean, honestly could take a back seat until he's given that, bigger role once they kind of lean off of Swift.
Give him 10 touches a game and kind of ease him into it.
10 to 15 to 15 for a 20 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Completely good.
it'll be okay.
Create your thunder and lightning.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where it gets tough. And I'm not saying this should be the pick and this will be the pick.
Uh-huh.
But would we be shocked if this was another running back here? With everything going on with Breece Hall?
Yes, just because I think it's hard to, maybe it's my own justification of it.
Yeah.
Because, I get they have to be picked at some point, but at 42, it's hard with the defensive talent on the board to make that selection for me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Well, and that's where it gets difficult because there's not a defensive tackle here that I'm in love with.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take corner, which I would probably say that's the route I'm going to go at this point.
Yeah.
You could do Mike Green, but you have Jermaine Johnson, you have Mike McDonald, there's the character concerns. So for me, it's really between BMO and Mike Green. What do we think here, guys?
I would lob a little grenade in there and say Princely Umami
Ooh.
just as a pure pass rush winner. And they had success with a guy like Will McDonald.
Yeah.
So it would make it would be interesting. But yeah, no, I think they signed Brandon Stevens, they have Sauce.
Yeah.
I think, bringing on a tough kind of physical corner like Benjamin Morrison for Aaron Glenn. They did it last year for him. Ennis Rakestraw in the second, Terry Arnold, of course, in the first. I like the Benjamin Morrison pick here.
Yep.
And then we get to the Niners.
Imagine if they had the chance to get Kenny and Mike Green. That is ridiculous. And immediately you fix all of the issues that you had on the defensive line.
The amount of just talent and athleticism is oozing out of that room immediately. I think this is a team that I think they're arrogant in the way that Dominic Mooney figured out, that I think they want to just develop another day two offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and like it's Ursery and everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the route we have to go here, just because there's such a thin, amount, and I guarantee these guys are going to come off the board in waves of like guys on the consensus board in like the 130s to go, just because like the NFL told us today what we had all been thinking. These tackles at the top are just so much better than the middle.
Everyone else.
That we just got to get one and figure it out later, and then we get to the final pick of this little second round mock draft. Of course, we got to talk Dallas. Are we all in agreement that I should click all the skill positions? Do they finally pull the trigger on one of them? Because they have to. I have a fit here.
I have a fit here too, and I think we're on the same page.
What's your fit?
I would love Caleb Johnson.
Yes.
Yep.
I absolutely.
I was thinking running back as well. Yeah.
We had this in our second round mock.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think this is the second best running back in the class.
Hey, they got a good guard to protect the
Yeah.
guys.
Well, exactly.
Block for him.
And it's just his zone stuff is just so easy at the line of scrimmage, and the vision and just the urgency to get upfield into holes is just tremendous for me. And I think at 44, he is worthy of the pick, even being, a running back. And as I've seemingly been knocking them this entire kind of recording, but just overall, I think that would be a good spot to put him. But
yes.
Yeah.
I think there's one more lingering question that I have for y'all.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you closing thoughts.
Yeah.
So
one more lingering question that I have for you guys. And obviously it's hard for the three of us to make this choice because we don't know. How far do you think Will Johnson can continue to fall before a team just says, F it? He is clearly the best player on the board, regardless of knee injury or not. We're just going to take him.
I would say he falls no farther than the top 15 picks in the second round.
Okay.
That's my range for him.
I'm a little different. I think
it's 48. I think it's 48. I don't think he gets past
Dolphins.
the Dolphins because there is such a need.
Such a dire need.
Yeah. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wanted to add, my own personal, what I'm looking for is, a couple of the things. Obviously, you've got a couple quarterbacks taken already in the first 10 picks, right? Yeah. And so the one thing to really emphasize on people that, might not already know this, but they don't get a fifth-year option with that contract. Yeah. So, it makes me curious how far these, teams are willing to let these guys fall. Let's be honest with you, it's not that talented of a quarterback,
I think
remaining quarterbacks outside of Shedeur, which will likely fall to the Browns at some point. I would assume they just don't let that,
they don't play around with it. They just take him.
Yeah,
exactly. So, with that being said, is Shedeur the only guy we see in the second round for the quarterback? Potentially. Milroe's still available.
I think people love Chuck.
Yeah, I think Shuck has a lot of fans of just what he can do walking in the door to kind of just elevate your room a little bit,
right? And
be able to play in a pinch. Where Milroe is a complete, I don't want to say, he's a complete time-consuming, project. It needs to be like the Jets, somewhere where you just got a new kind of coordinator and a new ideology in the door that they can say, listen, I have a plan for this guy,
you have to.
And we need to figure it out over the long term, because if it's like,
imagine the Rams taking him at 46.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. That'd be pretty awesome. I think any quarterback, I think any one of us could be put at quarterback with Sean McVay.
Yes,
we'd figure it out.
Yep.
But No, that's all for day one. We ended up talking for over 75 minutes, as we always do, yapping. But no, this is awesome. The three of us to finally be together and kind of share draft takes after we saw it happen.
Absolutely.
It's awesome stuff. So very, very much appreciate you guys for, what we've accomplished this draft season.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
And we're not done
hard.
yet. I
Nope.
know,
Absolutely
we've got
not.
a lot more, reviewing to be doing. So, enjoy day 2. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
And
You're gonna have a lot of fun, that's for sure.
I sure am.
You still got 2. You still got 2 picks up there.
Hey,
Yep.
yeah.
And I think you have a third.
That's a win, and we do have a third. Yeah.
There you
I think
go.
It's in the 70s somewhere. I don't know, 71 maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out tomorrow.
Mm.
All right. See you guys in the next one.